Hey, I'm Fred.
And I'm Ant.
And this is Creator Generation.
Create a generation of hype.
All right, Frederico, what is happening this week?
This week we're chatting with Aaron Gocs, or Gocsy.
Gocsy.
People wonder if what I do is how much is put on. And it sounds silly, but I don't even know what to say to them because I'm not sure myself.
Gocsy is a stand-up comedian who used social video like YouTube to get recognized by brands such as Vice and Comedy Central. And he's here to tell us his story. Remember, we also have Change a College, which is going to help you become an even better YouTube creator. And you can find it at changeacollege.com. That's CHANGER college.com.
Awesome. Let's get into it. Aaron Gocs, welcome to Creator Generation.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's awesome to have you here. Can we call you Gocsy? Is that easier?
Sure.
No.
I get that more than any other name I receive.
Don't get Aaron anymore. You don't respond.
No.
Well, can you kick us off by just introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
Okay, Aaron Gocs, comedian. I'm 34 years old. Feels like a dating app or something. So started in stand-up comedy and last few years branched out into sort of acting as well, which is fun, and comedian in general, really.
Yeah, brilliant. But like, why where did you start with comedy? How did that start? Let's go back.
I guess this is probably the cliche answer, but I always just thought I'm a funny guy throughout most of my life. But the early part of my life, obviously, it was not harnessed very well. It was just people saying, like mates saying, stop saying the same old jokes, and also in families and teachers and things not getting it, or not appreciating it, I guess. And that was partly doing it at the wrong times and that. But yeah, it was, so the first part of my life, it was like, I think I'm a funny dude, but I'm more of like not using that in a way, that's why it's been good the last few years to be able to use that in a good way.
What do you mean? Like, so were you like the class clown? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, basically, I was just trying to not to say that.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, I didn't mean in a bad way, but I was just trying not to be cliche. But I struggled at school. I wasn't good at school, and the trying to be class clown got in the way of that. Yeah.
So when you say like you sort of channel, like what does that mean? Like, how did you do that? Like, there's plenty of funny people out there, and people who think maybe they're funny, but like, what was there a switch that flipped? Was there an experience that happened where you were like, oh, hang on, I can...
Yeah, I guess just for so long, I was just trying to use the pieces that are already in place, like going to local comedy gigs and using that. And then when it was like, if I start to put some things online, and that got it out to a further audience, yeah.
So what came first, the putting the stuff out online or putting yourself out there into a live audience?
Oh, definitely live. I was at it for a long time. It was probably, I don't know exact dates and things. These are all just guesses, but I think it was like 6 or 7 years I'd been doing like live stand-up.
Yeah,
and then before that, the class clown, family clown stuff, yeah.
We're going to talk a bit more about like how you transition from stand-up to, other things and grew from there. But I was just having a chat with Aaron before. So back in the day, Changer, we used to run comedy rooms for emerging talent, to get them on stage and show off great new comedy talent. I remember you were in our very first show. We did 6 shows in the end of it, I think about 3 years, but you were the very first show. And I remember when you came on stage, I was up in the booth and you come on stage and you were wearing a taxi uniform. And I think the whole audience wasn't sure if that was actually coming out of your shift or that was just part of the act. And it was like something, they were talking about it after, everyone was laughing, and it was really it was a really great part of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I actually was on a shift. I was just on a break, and I was a night shift driver. But it's funny you say that, because there is people wonder if what I do is how much is put on, and it sounds silly, but I don't even know what to say to them because I'm not sure myself. Like, I like to give people a look into my life, my actual life, but there is some exaggeration, obviously, because real lives are boring. But that's part of what I try and do too, is the monotony of suburban life and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like it's all my influences were like that, like like the castle, and I love that sort of look at suburban life. Even The Simpsons was kind of like that, more American way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe like for people who don't know who you are, like maybe you can explain your comedy a bit more. Like you started there, but like what's going on?
Yeah, totally. I don't expect people to. I know I'm kind of niche. I'm stuck between weird and niche, and quite a few people know who I am. But yeah, it's been described as dry, very dry. I talk about my own life experiences. I've done a lot of sort of blue collar work. So I talk about that, working in warehouses, taxi driver, like you said, playing footy and stuff, sports and suburban life, just like fast food and that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's you can tell I don't deal with the big. I'm not political or anything.
Yeah, and then you say like people ask you how much is it persona, how much if it's you, and you don't even know the blurred lines. Like, but Gocsy is like your character, your persona in a way, right? And Aaron is yourself. Like, do you have a distinction like that in your own mind, or?
Well, yeah. If people find me in my private life, I'm pretty bland and boring, but I play it up a little bit. But yeah, there is quite a lot of overlap. It started as a bit of a character, and then and I've just eventually just like lived it.
So, part of that question is, would you have the epic mullet anyway? Or is it part of the character? Or do you want to release that?
Well, that's another thing where it started as just a bit of a silly character, and then I've kind of just had to. I'm worried what it'd be like if I cut it off. I'll be like, no, don't go. Like people are only into me for my hair or something. No, but it's funny. It's like you think about it. You like to think that it's a joke. Yeah. But it started as just a joke, and then it's kind of morphed into where it's me.
So, yeah, it's super interesting that and we talk about on the show and with a lot of talent, whether they're working online or not, that like that authenticity of and is so important to success. And it's like you're
there is a lot of talk even with different genres of entertainment, and even with music, where it's like, all right, you started out as this angry punk band, like, and now you're successful, you're still going to be angry. And it's like, I'm sure people struggle with that. Like, I'm not like this character I began with, but I've got to keep it going. But that's where, the lines are quite blurred for me. But I don't feel like it's a huge character that I switch on and off. That's probably my best answer.
No, it's a great answer.
So, I mean, you went from, so you did comedy, stand-up for a while. You said like 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And that obviously, you gained a name for yourself from that. What was that transition like between that and the next step? I remember the first I heard of you transitioning was when I watched your Korn video. It was the guy eating corn with corn curls, listening to Korn.
Cornrows.
Cornrows. Sorry, it's cornrows eating. Yeah,
that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, it was a very funny period of my life, because it was kind of like I've heard this term used before where they're like, overnight success that's taken years. What do they call that?
Yeah.
So it's like I've been at it for ages, and now quite a lot more people know me or what I look like, not so much the name. Because even those first few, it was more like a meme where it was shared around but wasn't attributed, like, which is fine. I'm like, people like what I'm doing. That means there's an interest in that humor, and I just believed in it. I was like, if I keep at it, I'll get that recognition.
Yeah. Was that was that the video that sort of sparked more things to happen? What was the first one that really created?
Yeah, I think so. But like I said, it wasn't being attributed to me, so it was doing well, but no one was kind of.
Oh, that's not Gocsy. They didn't say.
Yeah,
that.
That was. I was just getting like, I was seeing there was like articles and posts coming up saying like, "Is this guy cooked?" and like, "What's going on?" And you know what memes are like. No one you share the thing, but you're not interested in the person.
You just explain this. So basically, it's just it's not a very long video, right? And it's just basically you sitting in front of your laptop screen, I guess, and you're listening to the band Korn, you're eating corn, and you have cornrows, and that's just it. There's nothing else in the video.
See, a lot of that stuff can't, like I said, I started with stand-up because I had funny ideas like that, but I I was so bad with the organization. Like I didn't have anyone to work with. I was bad with tech. So the low fineness of it was more out of necessity. I didn't know. But then I think people enjoyed that charm because I was so bad at it. Like you could see me like switching off. I didn't even know how to edit that bit out. Like my hand reaches over. And I felt bad. I'm like, this is so bad. But I think people liked. I don't like to try and guess what people like. But the the charmingness of this is so bad because you had everyone doing those very polished. Like there was some people with great editing, and that type of video that always comes up where it's got says what the plot is. It's like man does something prank to girlfriend or whatever. Yeah. And that's what the title was a play off of that. Like,
it was great. Like, some people just love that. I mean, I think it's about 500,000 views now.
Well, I think that was
more
like my cheekiness to call it Guy is probably. I can't blame myself for not. I have to blame myself for not getting that recognition because I didn't attach myself to it. But, But anyway, so that a lot of that was I had the ideas, but I just didn't know how to present it or put it out there, and that's why for so many years, like that structure of go to a local gig, do a spot. Like I don't know if you know much about the local circuit, but you get about 5 minutes at a local pub, and there's a few people there. Some want it. There's a few people that don't want the gig. They just chuck a mic in the corner while people are having dinner and that. And it's quite a brutal circuit. So it was very difficult. Like I said, 6 or 7 years and wondering like where is this going and but just it was the only thing I've ever felt comfortable doing is kind of being a funny guy.
and an idea like Guy eating corn with cornrows, listening to Korn, that's probably not going to fly at the local stand-up gig either, right? So
yeah, that's right.
You had those ideas, and then is that when you went, all right, let's make a video and see what happens?
Yeah, well, because it's funny because I was like a lot of people that get into something, you start off as a fan of that thing, and I was a big comedy fan, and I did like a lot of stand-up, but I wasn't a massive stand-up fan. I was more grew up with your sort of comedy movies and TV and watching like Jim Carrey, Full Frontal. That was really big for me. But I didn't hate stand-up. I just wasn't a massive fan. So I did stand-up just because, like I said, it's easy to think of jokes, do that. It's cheap. You can control it. But I did have these ideas of being a silly guy, funny guy. So, yeah, it was and that's where the internet allows that, for you to just put it out there. And it was like I said, I wasn't good with tech, but for a long time, I put it off, and that was my parents, the webcam on their computer, and I was that bad. I was like, I don't know how to run a webcam, but then I made the effort. I'm like, all right, there's as they say, like put up or shut up, that sort of thing. Like stop whinging, because I was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. This is tough. These gigs aren't. And I'm like, all right, I got to make the effort. And then when I bothered to look into it, it was easy, switch on a webcam and, easy, not easy to make it look good, because like I said, I didn't know how to edit or anything, but I just put it and then uploaded it, and the power of the internet started getting shared around.
It's interesting because so many people try and put so much effort into like, oh, we're going to make the production value really high, and they, so many creators have said the highest production value videos tend to go nowhere, but it's the ones where they're just purely doing something interesting.
And in some ways, I think I wouldn't say I feel bad. I don't feel bad for them, but I'm like, yes, they've learned the stuff and all that, and I acknowledge that. But also, I've felt my whole life that I'm a funny guy, so that's why I thought, I deserve this, even though I've skipped that bit of knowing how to produce. But like I said, all my heroes in the 90s, like they were able to act and that, and they didn't have to run the camera. So it goes in cycles, All
right. And so what happened next? So you said you weren't getting recognition as, Aaron Gocs from those videos. Like, how did you go from there to the next step?
Yeah, so then I realized like this is getting a bit of attention, so there's something in it. So I just kept at it and putting a few more videos up, and then one did very well called Classic Stitch Up, and that was, again, it was just like switch on the webcam. Well, it wasn't the same as the Korn one because that was just being silly, but this one was retelling a story that happened at work, and it was an actual job I had, and I retold it. But I did think about how I was going to.
Can you tell it now quickly, or is it too hard?
Well, it was just like guys mucking around at work, you know, and they sent this guy to, like, oh, you got to go see the boss, and then he got there, and then the boss is like, nah, I didn't send you here, and it was like it was a simple, silly thing, but I wrote it up quickly, a quick script how I wanted it, but I didn't want to say it word for word, so I wrote the script of the basic vibe that I wanted to talk about. And then I posted it, and yeah, like I said, the internet's very powerful because by the end of the day, it was everywhere. Even I actually posted in the morning, went to that job that I was working at in Brisbane, and by the end of the day, people were showing me on their phone going, "Is this you?" And they weren't from comedy, like they weren't in the comedy bubble, they didn't know me. Like I was just a labourer working at this place, and that's how powerful it was. In a space of whatever the shift was, 7 or 8 hours, these people it had gotten to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened after that?
That was when it was like, all right, people are starting to know who I am now, appreciate it. So I've got to kind of, it's not a nice word, but it's reality, monetize it.
Yeah.
I know it's not a nice word, but it's reality, isn't it? So I was like, I'll try and do some live shows because I've been performing for 7 years or whatever. But now I can like ticket them, you know, whereas I've just been doing 5-minute spots. But that's where I believe it was, in hindsight, it was almost like an apprenticeship, like doing my time, because then I had a good enough show, whereas some of these other guys, I don't, you know, do the other way around, where they do well online, and they're like, all right, I got to make a show.
So did you use did that audience, the viewer numbers on the videos help you get the paid gigs, or
yeah, definitely,
or get the attention of venues that are going to pay you? Or like, how did that?
Well, I actually put on my own shows. Like I contacted a venue and say, "Can I do this show?" And I ticketed it and sold tickets, and
awesome.
Yeah, and it's still the most numbers I've ever gotten.
That's great. And so like they were your true fans, right? Like they're loving
Well,
what you
at
do.
first it was a little bit of like, say the line, you know. It was like people wanting you to just do. But over time, like people have stuck with me and appreciate the person the act that I am, you know.
Did you feel like you knew that path? Like when you went, oh, I've got to monetize this, was it just like up in like just light bulb moment, this is what I'll do? Or was it kind of like,
no, it was,
what do I do next?
Yeah, it was quite a strange period because, I was like, what does it mean, you know? Is it, because, you know, it's easy to just people go, oh yeah, funny clip, like, I was like, will they come to my show? So it was an experiment. I wasn't expecting. I didn't know how many would come, but yeah, I was getting good numbers. I was like, tour it around a bit. I'd get sort of 80 to 100 people in some cities, which is pretty great, you know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and like you're still doing stand up.
Yeah,
and it's still a big part. Still one of your favorite things.
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's great because get that immediate reaction. You know, you hear the laughter. Hopefully, sometimes it's a bit quiet, but no, most audiences are great, and I love that feeling. And there's nothing else. It sounds cheesy, but this is honest truth. Is I've never felt anything like that in my life. And like, I love sports. I played a lot of sport. I love them, and you'd win games. It's like, yeah, this is pretty good. But that feeling, like, I wrote this, I thought of it, I presented it, and I'm hearing the laughter. That's a great feeling. Yeah.
And okay, so you went from those videos and the stitch ups, and then what came next in terms of like the video journey?
Well, then not long after that, I moved down from Melbourne to Melbourne. Like I said, I wanted to work with people, and I felt there's less options in Brisbane, so I got down here and I started working with some people to write, to perform in more kind of produced sort of skits and sketches, and that went really well. And yeah, so the last few years has been a mixture of stand up and acting, which I've loved. Like I said, I do like stand up a lot, but my main first love was just comedy in general, funny, and I love doing skits and sketches and stuff. Yes, and that'll it's really fun because you dress up and. But there's also a lot of pressure too, like, because like live, it's like it happens and it goes. Whereas recording is like, this is trapped on film. Like whatever you do in that moment,
Yeah.
people are going to watch. And with those early videos that I did at my parents' house and that, they're very lo-fi, I didn't expect anyone to see them. So it was just like, or not large number. I was hoping for a few, of course, but very niche audience, you know. And but then when I started doing the skits, I imagine more people seeing it, so it's a lot more pressure.
How did that, like, so you moved to Melbourne, like, to work with more people and collaborate on skits and other like, was that comedy connections, or like what sort of people are you working with there?
At first it was because I'd started so about 5 or 6 years in, I'd started touring interstate. My first 5 years I just did gigs in Queensland, but then about 5 or 6 years in, I started touring interstate, and it was people I'd met, other like comedians and things that I gigged with in Melbourne, and that a few of them had started branching off into doing skits and sketches. So yeah, I work with them, and it went really well, you know, and it was great to be able to show people there's another side, you know. He's not just the lo-fi guy who does some stand-up. You can do the produced stuff as well. Because, you know, there's always that worry of, like, am I a one-trick pony sort of thing.
Mm. And with the growth of sort of your personal brand, Aaron Gocs brand, you obviously got more opportunities came to you. Before we talk about some of the bigger stuff, like you said you did some organised sketches. Is that where Ocean Girl came from?
Yeah, that was the first one when I arrived in Melbourne that I did, yeah, and that went really well. And that was that natural growth of, like I said, from the Korn one to the next one that showed I can actually be recognised for this.
Yeah.
And that was the next one where it's like, it was a couple of months after I moved, and at first it was quite hard when I moved down. It was like, you expect things to kind of take off, and it didn't. But then that was like, yeah, this is worth it, you know. That was a really good moment.
So tell people about Ocean Girl. Like, what's the premise of that?
It's basically me in a girl's swimsuit pretending to be, because there's a lot of this stuff's, like I said, grew up in the 90s, so there's like kind of the nostalgia thing and getting to do, because that was kind of like a big thing in the 90s for
Ocean
kids.
Girl TV show.
Yeah. Apparently there was a few of them. I don't know too much about it. I wasn't a huge watcher of it, but that script was written for me, so, which I enjoy that. I enjoy both. I like making my own things, but I also like when people like, here, I've written a character for you. Because that's good. It gets you to do stuff that you wouldn't think of doing yourself. Because I never would have thought, oh, I'm going to wear a swimsuit. It was actually quite a funny story of purchasing that. I had to take my daughter along into Target, pretending it was for her. I'm like, oh, you know, and luckily she's quite big, you know.
I think anyone listening and not watching on YouTube should probably, if you don't know Aaron, you should Google this, like, Aaron Gocs Ocean Girl, because there's this like great picture of imagery in my head of you in a swimsuit, I think lying in bed as Ocean Girl, and it's just.
It was actually absolutely freezing. It was in the middle of winter at a beach near St Kilda, and it was like, God, this better be worth it. And that's why I believe in, what's the saying about, like, struggling for your art, or no pain, no gain sort of thing, because it was the coldest I've felt in my life. If you know what it's like, July, or I don't know, can't remember the exact date, but, you know, middle of winter.
That's brutal.
The air in Melbourne is cold enough without going into the water, yeah. Anyway.
Fred, let's take a quick break here and just give ourselves a big plug. We are super excited by this new initiative. We have created the Changer Creator College.
The Creator College, quite simply, is a place where you can get a whole bunch of online courses, including our brand new Accelerate course for YouTube, designed to help emerging and new creators become even better on the world's biggest video platform. The reason we think it's pretty good is that it's not just our opinions, but the opinions of a bunch of really great creators and experts coming together to give you a very logical, structured course.
Damn right. It is the college just for creators. So check it out at
changercollege.com. That's CHANGER college.com. So after doing that Ocean Girl sketch, what kind of reaction did that get?
Yeah, that did really well. Again, like I said with the Stitcher one, it was very exciting to see that the power to put something out and within the space of a few hours, just massive response and people enjoying it. And like I said, when I was asked to do it, it was exciting, but I never would have thought of doing that. And then there was a bit of doubt, like, oh, what will people think? But I think people like that shock of like, here's this kind of chubby guy in a female swimsuit. So there was a bit of that shock reaction, But and people enjoyed it, which was great. And for me, it was like after that initial first couple of months of being quite tough, living in Melbourne, I'm like, oh, this is all worth it. This is awesome, Yeah, it was a lot of emotions.
And were you working with a bigger crew, or like, because you didn't write that? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, that was that group. So there were a few comedians I'd met on previous travels, and it was exciting because I'd never worked in anything like that where they had camera, sound, a full like a group of people working together to film, and scripts written, and it was like it was exciting. It was like Brisbane isn't tiny, but it's smaller compared to Melbourne. It's like this is why I moved, It's like imagine what it'd feel like in America if you moved to LA or you're like move to the big smoke to have a crack, and it's like this is why, It's like, all right, people like my stuff on my parents' crappy webcam. Let's see if they like if I do legit stuff, and like I said, it was that kind of doing on the other end of what I grew up watching to be able to make comedy like your heroes that you watch growing up. It was exciting, yeah.
That's awesome.
And then what came after Ocean Girl?
So after that did well, there was some offers come in for some people to work with, which was great. And then, like I said, it was a great feeling, but it was also opened up new feelings of like pressure. Like now, all right, this is what I'm doing. Like awesome. But there's a lot of pressure, like when that camera switches on, I've got to get it right, and there's going to be more people watching now, and basically doing this professionally, which is awesome. But it was great. But like it was hard work as well. Like I'm not trying to say it's not like there's people out there doing real work. Like I've done it for years, labouring and stuff. I'm not trying to say it's like that. It's different. It's just there was long days and it was more mentally tough, It's like the pressure of got to make something good now, yeah.
And is that where the Comedy Central opportunity came from?
Yeah, that's right. Comedy Central were the first, the Australian branch, Comedy Central Australia, requested us to do do a series for them. It was the same group I did the Ocean Girl with, yeah.
Right. And how did that go? Like that was not what it was like working with a bigger network.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was great. It was opened up new challenges and pressure, but doing stuff I'd never done before and having like scripts specifically written for me, and it was exciting, and doing stuff was like a series got my name on it, which is awesome, Yeah, it was great.
And that was for one more series of Ocean Girl.
I did a series called Gocsy's Classics, which was parodies of like 90s Aussie kids shows pretty loosely.
Right.
I think there was one that wasn't Aussie and one wasn't a kids show. I should just say 90s 90s TV shows. But yeah, it was like Round the Twist, Blue Healers. There was another Ocean Girl one, yeah. So there was 5 of them, and that was exciting. And we did some with the same group. I did few skits for a show on Foxtel. The comedy channel is called The Slot, and it was all people who had done things online come together to do skits. So that was exciting as well. And yeah, just trying to keep busy. It was great time because it was like, yeah, this is what I wanted, and I'm doing it now. And not many people get to do that.
Were you doing stand up at the same time? Still?
Yeah. So I was still doing live shows and touring around and just trying to juggle it all. And it was a very hectic period of my life because I'd moved down here with my daughters as a single dad. So I had my 2 daughters here, trying to juggle, looking after them, and then some acting stuff and some live stuff. So yeah, there's a bit of a blur that for a year or 2.
It's pretty
My
intense.
life.
And well, like, did that also then from there go into other network stuff? Did you start working with other big groups?
Yeah, well, like I said, so there was Comedy Central, Foxtel, did a few things with Vice. Yeah, so pretty exciting, and there's a few things that popped up along the way as well, a few ads and.
And what was the Vice work?
That was a series where I visited factories, 3 different factories actually, and like I said, I do a lot of humour based around like fast food, junk food and stuff. So it was Lolly Snakes was the first one. Allen's Lollies up, it's just outside of Melbourne in country town. Second one was Chicken Salt, which was over in Adelaide. And
People in the US know what chicken salt is.
I think they think.
Can
I've
you explain
heard-
chicken salt
so.
quickly?
I've heard
You're the
it's-
expert on that. So,
Yeah.
like,
I've
now.
heard it's Australian only apparently, which is
Oh, really?
crazy. Another thing to be proud about.
Oh, if you haven't had it, it's ridiculously good.
Is there chicken in chicken salt?
Apparently it's vegan, so
Oh, really?
yeah, it's
So for people listening, it's basically salt that has a chicken flavor to it.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. And,
yeah.
Oh,
and I don't even know.
Chicken.
Yeah. Very loosely. But it's one of those things that, like, when you get chips from the fish and chip shop and they're like, "Do you want salt?" and they offer you like normal salt or chicken salt, and a lot of people eyes light up, "Chicken salt, please." You know.
oh.
But yeah, I love that sort of stuff. Just like silly little suburban things that, but like I find humor in it because it's just little things that we.
And what were you doing in the factory? Is you just like taking a tour and
Yeah, just tour around, chatting with workers, and the original idea was, like I said, like I do a lot of like humor, like suburban sort of thing. So it was like, let's get to know, shine a light on unsung heroes, loosely, again, quite loosely. You know, it's a bit of a tongue in cheek. A lot of the humor was like comparing them to like, like firefighters or emergency workers or whatever. But it's like, no, these are the guys making our snacks that we love, and no one thinks about, shine a light on that. And so there's a bit of a parody of like an intense journalist, that's like, let's uncover this.
Because the third video in that series was Maxibon, which is an
ice cream sandwich.
ice cream sandwich, but not like your average ice cream sandwich. And the guys at Vice told us that you were like, you're a mega Maxibon fan.
Can you just sort of
Already.
describe-
Well, I was.
So-
I can't have them anymore because I had like 8 that day. No.
There goes the story.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm curious to like that fit and how that, because like how that came about, or because you're naturally talking about authenticity and connection, both to brands and your content. Like you were, until you had to eat, or decided to eat a gazillion of them. Like,
Well,
right into it.
the funny thing with that stuff is that there is. I never realized there's these kind of like intense following online. I don't know if you've ever seen. There's like groups and stuff. There's this group on Facebook, like guys and their ice creams or something like that, and they're so into it. They're like, and you can actually. I reckon they're a bit too much, because you can like say the wrong thing, and they were like, he ate the wrong side first. I saw comments. I didn't. That's the thing. You got to watch what you do and say, and it's the strangest thing. It's a very niche but big audience,
But you were a member of that already, were you? Or
Yeah, like I was just like, because you can like lurk in groups and just watch and stuff, but it got too intense because like some people start getting really aggressive and stuff.
wow, which
Yeah.
way should you eat a Maxibon, according to the
For
Facebook
me,
group?
just I can't even remember actually because I don't care about that stuff. But I think you got to have the biscuit first or something. They'll probably get angry at me. I
yeah,
probably
yeah.
got it wrong.
Sorry. Well,
And
anyway.
this factory just makes maxi bonds.
No,
it's all ice cream.
it's they've got a lot of different products,
Yeah.
but I was just
After the maxi bond.
yeah, I just looked around at them because they had a new flavor coming out. So that's yeah, it's kind of it's sneaky sponsored contest.
And what was it like work? I mean, the Vice production would have been a lot bigger with producers and stuff involved. What was it like working with a really organized crew?
Yeah, well, that was actually so the same group that I made the other things with, Comedy Central and Foxtel. They like wrote the scripts for me and
Right.
directed, and so there was just added on was like we used Vice's equipment and producers and stuff. So it was a co-production, yeah. But I was comfortable because it was the people I usually work with. But it was exciting to work with these well-known brands and channels and stuff. It's like that's what I said. Like it's crazy because like Comedy Central, like it's the Australian branch, but still like like South Park and all these. One of my favorite comedians, like the CD I had of his live album that was on Comedy Central, and it's crazy. And like Foxtel and Vice is a massive channel, so it was exciting.
And that would have been obviously. I mean, did you start to get used to the fact of working with like bigger productions and a lot of like it's not easier but more organized?
Yeah, definitely. Where it's like, all right, now they've got like dates. They've when you're working independently, it's very loose. It's like I'll put it out when I want to. Whatever. When you're working with these bigger people, they're like they have exact dates and like deadlines and things. Like what you can and can't say. And it wasn't too strict, but it's still very different to working independently. Yeah.
Okay, so that was going obviously well. And what happens? What happens next? Do you want to keep doing that, or do you want to go back to stand up, or what happens?
Well, I just like obviously I want to keep busy, but also I want to make sure I'm happy with what I put out, that I'm doing good stuff that I'd like, and that, and yeah, but like a lot of the stuff was requested. It's people wanting me to do it, so. Yeah, you just got to wait for the next offer, and sometimes there's quiet periods. Like at the moment, it's a bit quiet, but you just got to hope there's something around the corner. But like I said, if I'm trying to make stuff that I think's good, and like there's a niche following, but I'm pretty happy. There's like people are into it. Yeah.
I was looking at some of the different videos you did and looking at the comments, I guess, and what your fan base like, and the people who like it. I mean, they really love you and your style of comedy, and they're defensive of you and almost like protective of you. How they do you do things, right?
Yeah. Well, it's great, but it's like that's why I don't worry too much about like numbers as such. But I realize. The reality is that you need numbers of like, you got to have people who are interested. You can't, but yeah, the people are really passionate and I'm appreciative of that. And like I've been selling merch the last couple of years, which blows my mind. But I still remember like the feeling of like selling a shirt with my name, because like I love music and stuff, and I've always worn band shirts, but that's more normal. That's like normal. Band does well, they'll put some shirts out. But there's not many comedians that do merch, and I remember that feeling of like to sell a shirt, and it's like, wow, like that's awesome, someone's wearing a shirt. But then it becomes the norm. Like you can't just, what it's like when you first have a great feeling, and it's hard to replicate. And now it's just like, come on, someone buy something. But it is still a great feeling. But yeah, and I've even like branched out into different merch too, done like stickers and just released stubby coolers, and it's crazy, And every time I bring it out, I'm a bit worried. I'm like, oh, maybe no one will want this, but yeah, it's pretty good reception.
If a lot of comedians aren't really doing merch, where'd you get that sort of inspiration and direction from?
Yeah, I guess it was that whole thing, like I said, of monetizing. It's like tickets is a great way, but it's hard because you got to like keep returning to towns and cities, and which I don't mind the work ethic element of it, but you also want to have a bit of a buzz build up. Well, you can't just return to a city if you've just been there, because they'll be like, oh, you were just here, And the same thing is like for me, like following bands and stuff where they did it, and it was that thing of like, all right, not a lot of comedians do it, but why not, Band, music, comedy, they're different in some ways, similar, it's all entertainment.
Yeah.
But there wasn't an expectation people would buy it. But yeah, I love that people do it.
Awesome. speaking of fans and like how much community, like online community engagement, do you sort of do? Like, how much do you sort of get amongst that side of things?
Well, when I started, I was huge. I'd like look at comments but I found my emotions were going too up like a roller coaster. I'd get too down about negative stuff and the other way as well is like really, and it's hard to deal with that because especially, and I had to learn not to sort of like respond because I'd be cheeky back just naturally. I'm just a kind of cheeky person, but I'd say something smarter, like response to someone who was a bit negative. And
how did that go?
Well, like and then some people loved it. They're like, oh, and then they'd tag a mate and go, oh, look at this epic burn or whatever. But I didn't even want that. I wasn't like trying to get infamy from that. I was just naturally cheeky. But then I realized that like also that sometimes they want to rise out of you too, and that'll keep more people doing it. And now I try really hard not to, and sometimes I don't even look because I'm a bit worried about negativity. But I just realized like, because when I would say smart aleck comment, I wasn't trying to like be rude, or I'd just be like, someone says something negative, and because the videos were free, I'd be a smart aleck comment. I'd say, oh, send me a message and I'll give you a refund. Because I've heard that before where people say, you're complaining about a free video, and you've probably seen over the years what I'm talking about, those type of comment.
Yeah.
The classic one is, because, they're pretty quick. They're like 2 or 3 minutes. People are like, well, there's 2 minutes of my life I won't be getting back. And like, so I'm not saying I've thought of this myself. I stole it from somewhere, but I saw someone comment saying, like, that's not how time works. You don't get 2 minutes back. But it's just it's that classic thing of like negative people speak loudly to try and, because it's like, I know what I do is a bit odd and weird, so I don't expect everyone to get it or enjoy it, and that's fine. Like, not everything is made for everyone. Like, you look at like pop stars and that, how much grief they get, and yeah.
It's we had Katie Morton, who's a therapist from the US on, and she works with a lot of creators, and she had a really good comment about this because a lot of creators we work with find it really hard to deal with the negative elements, and some even turn their comments off, which is a terrible idea. But she was saying like I think like every 4 or 5 negative comments you need so for every one negative comment you need 4 or 5 positive comments to even that out in your mind.
Yeah,
like it's a really hard thing to deal with because we sort of fixate on the negativity.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's funny you say that. That's what it feels like because you can have what the comment section's like. There can be a lot of people going like, "Oh, great, love it," and then the negative does stand out, and you remember that, and it's like, "Well, what did you come here to hurt my feelings for?" And it's a weird feeling because it's like, but even, and they say you shouldn't adjust what you do based on that, but there is. I have to admit, I do go to do something and start thinking, oh, I can't do that because people will whinge about that, and yeah. But one thing I find, sometimes I try not to just look at comments sometimes because like, and it's not even just negativity, but it's people picking up on stuff that you don't care about. Because like I'll just chuck on a shirt, but then people obsess, like they're like. And I don't like that, and then because I got like band shirts and stuff, and then people go, "Oh, do you like their new album?" And I'm like, "What about the thing I'm talking about?" Or the way your hair is, and I don't think about that stuff, But then at the same time, it's like if they want to, that's up to them.
Yeah. We work with a lot of comedy creators. It's obviously a big area of YouTube. I think it's the 3rd most popular category on YouTube. And there are a lot of aspiring comedy creators. And there's some really great people out there with great talent, great ideas. And, we actually have like comedy boot camps and stuff we do. And we work with Comedy Central to make those things happen because we want to show the opportunity that exists there. Do you feel that like it was a fairly, like you said, there was a grind involved, right? 7-8 years. And I think a lot of people don't understand that that's what you got to do, and like especially in these boot camps we do, we'd have to tell them first, like you have to establish that if you want to go from stand up to something bigger. but they don't realize sometimes how much effort that takes to do.
Yeah.
So, like, what advice would you give to budding comedians who want to go from like the stand-up circuit into where you went?
Yeah, well, I know it's easy to say now because, like, but looking in hindsight, I wanted things to move quickly and I was stressed and to the point of I'd actually, like, sort of complain and, you know, like, get a bit bitter, like, why aren't things happening for me? And but looking back, like I said, like now, my style is talking about my life, right? So, but when I started, I was like early 20s, which isn't super young, but I didn't have much going on either. So I kind of needed that life experience to have anything to talk about, and sounds cheesy, but to find my voice, as they say. But yeah, like it's a little bit like politics, I reckon, where, you know, when you see a young politician and a lot of people are like, oh, he hasn't lived, you know, like straight out of uni, how can he tell me how to live or how the world? That's what, like, comedy's a bit like that, because you don't want like a 20-year-old like telling you how the world works and they haven't lived. That's what it feels like. So you need to live a bit. You need to make mistakes, which sounds silly, but it's true, because then you work out what you don't want to do and so advice to young people is, I guess, is just let us old people. No, I'm joking. But yeah, that's what I realize now, because like if someone's young is coming through, like pushing through quickly, I won't be bitter now, but I'll just be like, they'll find out that like they'll be happier when they're older and think, oh, like this is what I want people to see, not, you know, like look back at the younger version of you and think, no, that wasn't very good, you know.
I mean, it is about I mean, I guess you can also be young and still grind and work hard to make it happen at I guess a younger age, but the effort has to be there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we were chatting to Russell Peters after an event, and he'd killed it. Oh, the gig was amazing, huge packed audience, and like he, you know, we were saying after, like, you really understand your audience, and he's like, yeah, you do. And I remember him saying previously that it had been like he'd spent years and years and years on the stand-up circuit, like touring like America and trying to make that work, but they don't see the effort. They just see that result, and, you know, packed gigs and like everyone's enjoying themselves. But, you know, it's a honing an art.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Yeah,
and also
and a specific style too.
Yeah, exactly. Because like when I think of how I started, and it sounds silly, but I'm kind of glad that didn't get known, because it was so like bland and that. But then you'd be known for that. And I know Louis C.K. has been in a bit of trouble for various reasons, but even ignoring that, if you look, there's some videos of his very early days, and he was quite like plain and bland, and I think he just took time. It's like a lot of things, you got to work on it.
Yeah, you mentioned before, like, making mistakes and like actually being open to that and sort of willing to that. What, like, when you made those mistakes at the time, were you like, okay, that's all right? Or is it now in hindsight you look back and be like, all right, those mistakes actually helped me?
Well, like when I started, my style was quite different. It was like stand up. So it was like wordplay. I didn't have much to talk about. That's what I was saying. It was very bland and plain, and it took me years to get to where the style that I wanted to do, what I do now, because you got to like be comfortable in that, and because like now what I do, like I said, just kind of like suburban life, whatever. But the thinking before that was like, no one really wants to hear about that. But then, yeah, people confuse confidence in another way. Like, there's different types of confidence, if that makes sense to you. Like people, there's that confidence of like cocky, I'm the best. Not that. What I meant is confidence in the character yeah. So that's why, like, I guess I didn't do those videos until I was like 6 or 7 years into it. Whereas if I would have put out videos earlier, it would have just been that very bland character.
Well, we like to finish with top tips. Like, what advice would you give to aspiring comedians who want to get, like, you know, from the stand-up circuit into maybe video work?
I guess don't focus on like worrying about like, I've got to be pro now, I've got to be getting professional work. Don't put time frame, because I know easy to say now, but like I said, I was 7 years into it before I started getting professional work, and there's actually no exact time. If it takes you 8 years, 9 years, but you got to want to do it. So if you want to do it, if you really enjoy being funny, then keep at it. But if you don't, get out of it. But no, yeah. If you think you're funny and you're good, keep at it. That's probably my main advice, and believe that your audience will be out there. Because for me, for a long time, it felt like it wasn't going to happen. Because like I said, I was just doing local gigs in Brisbane to like 5, 6, whatever people having dinner. And that can feel depressing. It's like, but yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that is a truly, I think, interesting point, because so many comedians feel like, is this like, am I playing, I've got like, I'm in front of 10 people. And then, I mean, you did that for a while and you just believed in what you were doing and your style. And it paid off because there was an audience who, in the biggest scene, who did like your content. And it, you can clearly see that from the numbers you get in those videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, like for me, like those social media platforms were very powerful and helpful. And times change, and we don't know what the future holds. That might go away, but there'll be something, Back in the day, it was radio or TV or community, even like community TV. Like, so yeah, just find what works for you, and give it a crack, I reckon.
That's killer advice. Yeah. Awesome. Aaron Gocs, thank you so much for joining us on Creative Generation.
Thanks, guys.
Love it. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Gocs' story is common with comedians, isn't it?
Yeah, not just comedians, but creators of all areas.
That's right. If you spend the time getting better at what you do and believe in yourself, you're going to get somewhere.
Definitely. Back yourself.
See you next week.
Bye.
Creative generation on the mic.